Officially welcome, John.
Yep, hi, Jono.
Thanks for joining. We're just talking about the tiny mad idea for Sue joins.
Yeah,
So if you really consider it, I mean, obviously there have been many philosophers and scientists who, have asked, well, the question, why? Why did this all happen?
yeah.
No one's really ever come up with any kind of convincing answer to it.
Well, how do they reason it in these schools of non-dual thinking and Vedanta and the school of oneness?
Well, they talk about Maya and the illusion, and they say, there's this Maya idea in your mind, and that idea is what causes the illusion. I'm not sure they fully explain it as Jesus does in the same detail as to like how the whole thing kicked off, a tiny mad idea, and then the whole descent into hell, metaphysics of it. Might as well share my screen given me talking about it. Oopsie. Okay. Something just went. Not quite sure what that was. Right. Okay. Just dropped away. All right. Always good. Yeah.
I was just thinking. I mean, there isn't a chapter in the course or in the text that actually explain this whole descent into hell.
Well, there are. There's sections where he goes into quite a lot of detail about
different aspects of it.
Different aspects, yeah. So this is kind of the summary of the teaching, which it's all in the text. This is based on Ken Wapnick's teaching, actually. I listened to a talk of his on the descent into hell. I was like, okay, well that makes a lot of sense. Explaining it like this, and yeah, I mean, how else could it have started? The problem is if you make God responsible for it, you say, well, God wanted to experience himself. God wanted a change. God wanted to create something else. You make it real, of course. You make the ultimate source responsible for this, and then you have to justify everything that goes on here, which is what any dualistic religion or spiritual path does. And of course, that's not really possible. You can't justify the unjustifiable. Then you have to define God as something that he's not. You have to define love as not love, and define it as guilt and sin and fear and hatred. And this really is the primary problem of this world, if you think about it. It's like, well, which of these is true? And there seems to be all of this really dark, it's a dark thought system, and see it played out in the world. And then how does that reconcile with the God of love? And no one can really explain that. So the only answer is that it doesn't. This is what Jesus figured out. He said it doesn't reconcile at all with the God of love. In fact, it's the opposite of love. And what's seemingly happened is your mind is split, and you've gone off on a tangent, created a false world from this belief in separation that has absolutely nothing to do with God or love. Now you're living in the effects of your own miscreation, suffering and dying, and you need salvation. You need to wake up from the dream. And this is why we have spiritual teachings, to awaken us from this nightmare that we've got ourselves into through all of this false thinking.
I mean, I do love the course. and a lot of the lessons are fabulous, and a lot of the text is really great, and it makes sense, and I understand it, and or I don't understand it, and it's just this kind of thought of this tiny mad idea thing, and then the turning. Well, I do get the tiny mad idea, but who had the idea? Yeah, that's the question that comes up. Well, who had the tiny mad idea? Okay, nobody had it. It was just a dream. But in the dream, we have this thought of separation, and then we realize, and then we actually believe in it. So we're in the dream, and then we actually believe in the dream. We make it real, and then we feel guilty because in order to make it real, we have to deny God. We have to kill God in our minds. And I think it's kind of like there that I kind of just, I just kind of feel that it's an explanation looking to find an answer. It just doesn't kind of get to the depth of me. But Sue's going to join us in a second anyway.
Not a full enough explanation. Well, I think part of what you're struggling with is it doesn't really make any sense. If you look at the logic of the ego and you unpack it, very clear it doesn't really make any sense. There's no validity to this thought system. It's actually insane.
Yeah.
Why would you have guilt?
Yeah.
Or something that you never really did. You can't really destroy God or your own awareness. Now, the idea that you can destroy your own awareness is clearly an insane idea. How can you do that? But just by definition, you have a mind, you can think. Well, you haven't destroyed your own awareness.
I think I get that. I kind of get that. There's a thought of separation. Okay, but it's an illusion, but it's a thought of separation. And within that thought, we then get sophisticated. We have all sorts of other thoughts, and then we actually believe in the thought. And when we believe in the thought, then along with that must come some sense of guilt, because we have. I mean, I do get that there's some sense of guilt. But I guess what okay, so then all this is kind of up at an energetic level, and then the ego comes into play. He's trying to project. So as soon as we have that sense of guilt, that's the kind of birth of the ego, because that's the moment of we have to deny.
Well, this would be, to use the analogy of birth, this would be conception, wouldn't it? The thought of separation would be conception. And then birth is once the belief in the ego is really firmly entrenched, and you now have actually created a separate identity. That's now the birth of the ego. So tiny mad idea conception. It goes through to actually being a fully formed identity, right? So now born as an identity, an entity in the mind, the separate entity, and then of course guilt and sin and fear and the whole thing happens. So this individuality really, when we decided that and we believed that this was true, that was really the birth of the ego.
Yeah.
The belief made it real in our minds, and of course that kicked off all of the consequences of it. If we'd simply said at this point of conception, no, that's just really just not an idea I want to entertain.
Yeah.
And not believe in it, then it would have gone nowhere. We just sort of dropped the idea, and returned our minds to pure formless awareness, and that would have been the end.
Yeah.
But we thought it was interesting and desired it, and as a result of that, desire created the belief.
Yeah. Okay. So I think the word desire rings mean in a meaningful way. Desire it's our desire rather than just being with pure formless awareness. We have a desire, and I guess that starts to ring true, because if we have a desire, then I can understand how the guilt then comes into play.
So I desire it. Because I desire it, I believe in it. Right? So desire creates the energy for belief, and belief then confirms it in your mind, and then the guilt entrenches that belief. Oh, I've really done this. Yes, I actually have pulled it off. I am an individual self. Pure formless awareness is denied. It's nowhere, and now I'm guilty for this terrible sin. Of course, the guilt makes it all real. That's
we're thinking also that the body manifests after the Big Bang, aren't we?
Yeah. All form comes after the Big Bang. Before this, it's all metaphysical.
Yeah.
Happening on a mind level, and then the idea is that it's such an intense energy. This thought of separating from your source, and the guilt, tremendous guilt and sin that arises in the mind, and then this overwhelming fear of punishment, and all of this is just too much for the mind to take. And so it, in desperation, it seeks some kind of escape.
Yeah.
And then invents a world which it projects out of its mind. We literally went out of our minds to escape from this terrible sin and guilt in the mind.
In this descent, through the thought of separation, individuality, guilt, fear, down to the Big Bang, we are mind. But of course, is this just the one mind? Is it many? Is it trillions of minds?
Well, the ego thought system is still only one thought system. So at the highest level of the ego, there's a unity of the. That's why we put that at the top. The ego is a separate identity, a consciousness, he calls it in the course.
Yeah.
The consciousness is like the top of the ego's ladder. Okay? So it's one consciousness of a separate identity. Okay, it's the idea of separation believed in is that consciousness, which then, because it has to, goes down the path of individuality, guilt, sin, fear, the Big Bang, projection outwards, accusation, blame, attack, and eventually we land up in seemingly an individual form in this projected world. An individual identity as a human being or another form that thinks that it's really separate, that thinks that its form makes it separate. But the idea of separation is behind it all. So think of it as a thought system. And there's really only one ego thought system, one thought system of separation, and one thought system of unity.
So we're giving the ego a lot of aren't we giving the ego a lot of power by saying it's conscious, it's the consciousness?
Well, that's a term to describe it. Jesus has to talk about it because he's got to make us aware of it.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
That's the conundrum. It doesn't not really real, but in our mind it's real. So he has to make us aware of it so we can choose to let it go. It's all a bit crazy when you think it doesn't really exist. But this is the problem. We've made it exist in our minds.
Yeah.
The awakening must be to help us to let go of our belief in its existence.
What I'd really like to do is be able to explain the metaphysics of the cause to someone who doesn't understand it, and I can't. I don't feel as though I can explain it using this model.
Really? Okay.
No, I mean I can. I mean I can say it, I can use the word, but I can't feel it. It doesn't really kind of.
All I can say is I think, John, it's because on a level your mind's trying to make sense of it, but it doesn't really make sense. It's actually what he's describing here is insane. This is an insane thought system. So you analyze it, you analyze insanity, and you go, well, I can kind of see this within itself that there's a kind of a twisted logic, isn't it? Because one thing logically leads to another. Individuality leads to guilt and sin, and that leads to fear and so on. But none of it really makes sense to me because, of course, none of it's true. If the fundamental premise of a thought system is false, the idea of separation is false, then everything must be false. It just doesn't make sense. So he's teaching us this. He's saying, look, within its thought system, if you don't question this, then all of this seems to make sense. It seems to be justified, and the ego stands. So you have to go in to the fundamental premise of it, which is the idea of separation that kicked it all off.
The idea of separation. Yeah.
No, it's just an idea. That's all it is. Just a tiny mad idea that we believed in. And it's almost incomprehensible that a tiny mad idea could result in this. You're like, whoa, like that's a tiny mad idea that's gone way beyond a tiny mad idea. That's a tiny mad idea that's become very real, and seemingly, this is now reality based on this tiny mad idea. So it's got way out of hand. The tiny mad idea blew itself up into something enormous in our minds that usurped oneness, completely superseded this. And now we, living in this pretty ghastly world, really. If you look at it honestly, trying to figure out what the hell happened, how we arrived here, and what we can do about it. Where does our salvation lie? How do we?
I could actually live with it much better without the words "tiny mad idea." If I view it as a conscious decision to be an individual and separate, a conscious decision to separate, and thereby become an individual, I can see how guilt would register.
Yeah, well, that's good. So it's a logical consequence of the idea of being an individual. Separate identity named leads to this. Oh, I've really done this. Oh my God. Oh my word. And I still desire my individual identity, but I feel this tremendous sense of guilt at what I've done, because I've now destroyed actually what was there, what was beautiful and pure and holy.
Yeah, it does kind of feel better for me if I take out the words "tiny mad idea" and really just go for the choice for individuality.
Yeah. So the tiny mad idea is where it started. That was conception. But it became much more than that in our minds, see?
Believed in it when we believed.
Because we believed in it, we desired it first of all. Tiny mad idea, we go, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Actually that could be something very interesting, because I've only ever known oneness, and now I've been given the opportunity to have my own.
Okay. So
the desire leads to a say, I want it, and because I want it, I start to believe in it. We believe in what we want.
Yeah.
So now I believe in it, and I start to hold this idea. This could be interesting. I could have my own identity. I don't have to be part of oneness. I don't have to be one with everyone. I can have my own special idea. Oh, now the
Okay,
ego.
okay. That's making more sense. So we get this thought of separation, which is conception. It's just the thought of like a 2-year-old would have, I'm going to go that direction. There's no sense of guilt. It's just inquisitiveness.
Yeah, curiosity. But you know what
Yeah,
happened.
yeah.
Curiosity to the cat. Uh,
But then that goes a bit further, and it becomes individuality. So at the stage of individual, so this little curiosity moves into, oh, and now, yeah, I quite like this. I can, got a sense of power. I can do this. I can do that. I can do this on my own. Aren't I unique?
and special.
That moment.
Now we have the individuality, which means that you have
Okay. So
vision.
at that moment, the guilt comes in.
Yeah.
Okay.
So because individuality implies, I mean, look at the word. You're in division and duality.
Yeah.
So division, separation is inherent, and so is
Yeah.
duality.
Okay. I'm making progress.
And then guilt comes in because we go, oh, that beautiful, peaceful state of mind that I had is now I'm feeling disturbed.
Yeah.
I'm not there anymore, and I feel like I've destroyed it, and I can't get back to it. See, the ego is telling you you can never go back. Impossible.
Else around. Yeah.
This is an eternal state of mind you've now got yourself into. The guilt is permanent, sin is real, and that's it. It's a done deal. God is dead, and the ego is triumphant.
So this word ego is the thought system that locks in when we engage in individuality.
Yeah, I mean, we're using the term belief in separation because I think that's really what describes it. It's an idea of separation, but it's more than an idea. You see, it's the belief in separation.
Yeah.
The belief is what gives it the idea, the power. If we didn't believe in it, we'd have no power. It's like, well, that's just a crazy belief. Never believed it, and if I don't believe it, then none of these consequences happen. See, this requires belief. Belief is what's fueled all of this. So it's a universe based on belief. We believe falsely, and then we project that belief outwards, and we prove to ourselves through the projection that the belief is real and true. And our perception, which we invented, confirms that the belief is true. And so we get locked into a closed loop system. You see that? It's a closed loop once you're in it.
Well, I'm
Why
getting that.
we're so despairing. Everyone's felt the kind of despair of being, stuck in this crazy thought system and trying to escape. And it seems very impossible. From the ego's perspective, it is impossible because it's never willing to tell you that outside of the idea of separation is something else, is the answer. Because then you obviously have to let go of its entire thought system. That's the end of it. So it will never tell you that. But this is the only approach I've found that makes any sense. It's like, well,
Yeah.
within the thought system, if you believe in separation, well, then that's it. If this is causative, if this is source, which is what the ego is trying to tell you, this idea of separation is ultimate source, then the universe is real. What happens here is real. Time is, this is what's going to happen forever. This cycle of birth and death. This is all reality. If the thought of separation is real.
So the ego is born or comes about as part of the process of this seeking of individuality.
Well, yeah, but I'd say it was just like an innocent wondering. So this idea pops into the head, and of course you go, well, how did that happen if there's only oneness? That because there's a paradox, there's an inherent paradox. If only perfect oneness is true and real, then this shouldn't be possible. That you can have an idea of separation. But this is the paradox of the dream that we live in.
Yeah.
Actually, that tiny mad idea never really happened. It's not a real idea, but we believed it happened. So the belief is what gives it the reality. You see.
Yeah.
So now the whole path, of miracle mindedness, this course is teaching us, is to undo our belief in this tiny mad idea, because it's the belief that's the problem. And this plays out in many ways. If you feel guilty, if you feel fearful, if you're angry, that's all a symptom of the belief in separation. It comes from your belief. So he's saying, okay, well, as you let these things go and you drop the thoughts and emotions, because the ego is made up, the belief in separation is simply made up of those thoughts and emotions. You're undoing it. The belief is starting to be undone and weakened. So this is the way out. Just systematically and progressively start undoing the belief as it arises in all of different disguises and forms. And he's training us to see that. Be very vigilant. Say, yeah, okay, I recognize. So, a grievance is just another form of separation. Fear, more separation. Concept of a fearful, wrathful, vengeful God, more separation. Accusation, blame, attack, more of a consequence of separation. The body, my belief in the body, the body's life, and the body's, I need to protect the body, I need to care for the body, and also more separation.
I think what I find curious is that a lot of teachers talk about the ego as though it's an energy, as though it's a unity unto itself. They kind of explain things in terms of, it's almost as in good and bad. There's either the ego or there's the right mind. And I mean, I understand where the right mind comes from, but this thing that people allude to as being the ego, where does it come from?
Well, it comes.
What energy is it?
It comes from a tiny mad idea which never happened. So therefore, it's illusory. You see.
Well, no, the tiny mad idea did not conceive the ego, did it? It can't have done. It was just
well, all the ego is that tiny mad idea. That's the root of it. It started with a tiny mad idea. Before we could believe in it, it was idea pops into the head. What if I could be separate? You want to frame it in words. I mean, this is long before we invented any kind of language to describe it. But it was like, just an idea in the mind. What if I could be separate from this perfect love? That's the tiny mad idea that conceived the ego.
Okay. I hadn't got that bit.
And that tiny mad idea isn't true. So therefore the ego's foundation is untrue.
But the ego brings with it tremendous forces.
Because we believed in it, you see. So our minds have been given power by God. Our awareness has power. And so if we choose to misdirect that awareness and believe in what's false,
okay.
act on it, it's going to have consequences because our minds have power.
Yeah. So the
course, it says, God can't deny the power of your mind because that's the power that it was given in its creation. So to deny the power of your mind is not the way. What you want to do is redirect your mind and think only right-minded thoughts, so that you're directing it from the place of truth, of oneness.
Okay, so the ego actually originates in from this moment of tiny mad idea.
Yeah. And it's a tiny mad idea that Jesus is saying never really happened.
Yeah.
You see, so the very foundation of the ego is false. That idea is not a true idea. That idea has no justification. It has no validity because only oneness is true.
Yeah.
And so from its conception, the tiny mad idea has to deny oneness in order to have any kind of existence in our mind. Because you can't have an idea of separation and also be perfectly one in your mind. They are mutually exclusive, contradictory. And so the whole teaching of A Course in Miracles and any authentic non-dual path is based on this. There's a split in the mind. The tiny mad idea and oneness cannot coexist. They are at odds with each other. They contradict each other. So now we have two ideas that contradict each other going on in our mind, and there's a continuous conflict between them, because we can't really let go of the oneness that is true. It's impossible to do that. And we can only deny it and bury it in our minds, but because it's still true, it will always be there. So, and then you've got this other false idea, separation, that seemingly usurped oneness. Now, because we believed in it, because we wanted it, now seems to consume your mind. This idea is the only idea, and oneness has been dissociated, as he calls it, denied, dissociated, put out of our minds. But it's still there. It can never disappear because it's the truth. And so that kind of sets the scene for this human existence we seemingly have, and the spiritual journey. These fundamental principles are what lead us ultimately, if we listen to the inner voice that still knows oneness is true. It leads us to question the entire ego's thought system, and eventually find our way back to the belief, the knowledge of oneness only. And that's really what this process is about with mind training. The at-one-ment is this process of correcting your false belief, letting it go, and acknowledging only oneness is true in every situation. Which logically, if you understand this diagram, the remedy becomes obvious, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Once you understand the metaphysics of it, it's like, okay, well, we had a tiny mad idea, we desired it, we believed in it, our belief gave it seeming power. We then went down this whole ladder of separation. We believed in crazy ideas like individuality and guilt and sin and fear, and then we want to project that guilt outwards as attack, and now we end up fighting with our brothers, accusing, blaming, and attacking them. We end up feeling helpless and alone and afraid in this helpless, innovative little life that we think we're living, and that's the bottom of the ladder. So it kind of makes sense then. Once you understand this, you go, okay, I'm starting to understand how this thing works, how this ego thought system works. If I understand how it works, I can unravel it. If I don't understand how it works, I won't have a clue as to how to undo it. So that's what he's trying to teach us. He's saying, okay, so let's just unpack this for you. Let's unravel this ego thought system so you understand it clearly, because then the answer becomes logical and you will accept that answer, because when you realize this is really the only answer, it's the only way, and there's no other way, then, okay, well, I don't have too many choices here. There's one way out.
That's helpful, Jono. Yeah. Let's see what Sue is up to. She's very quiet.
Quiet. Any thoughts, Sue?
Well, I think you answered my main question, because I keep thinking, well, who is the we? Who is the we who had this tiny mad idea? But what I understand from what you've just been saying is that it's just a belief. It's a belief system. It's a belief that we had an idea, whoever we is, that an idea was formed from oneness, that separation would be a good idea.
Well, it's a split, you see. So, but without the pure formless awareness, without a mind to start with, the idea could not have come into being, into any kind of existence. Let's be clear with our language, because he doesn't use being for the ego. It could not have had any kind of reality or existence at all. without your fundamental mind. So, the question is, if you're asking about the origin of the world and the universe, there must have been a mind that pre-existed the idea of separation. Because what thought the idea of separation? You see. So actually, the idea of separation confirms that there's some mind that's beyond it, if you interpret it correctly.
Well, did you just ask John what thought the idea of separation?
Yeah. So there must have been some foundation, some presence, some mind, whatever you want to call it, that pre-existed the idea of separation for there to be an idea. Yeah. See.
Which is pure formless awareness.
Which is this pure formless awareness. It's where everything begins and where everything ends. Before the idea of separation and after the idea of separation, that pure formless awareness will still be there and it will still be true.
Yeah.
So it's the alpha and the omega, as they term it in some spiritual teachings, because it pre-existed time, and when time is over, it will remain. It will still exist exactly as it was before time was invented. So that awareness is eternal, never changed. Even though this idea is now dancing away in a part of our mind that's seemingly split off from oneness and has denied it, oneness, the state of mind, is unaffected. It remains, as it always was. If it didn't remain, there would be nothing to go back to. The ego is trying to convince us that this has been obliterated. We have actually pulled this off and we've destroyed it. And so now we're condemned to believe in separation forever. And this is the only alternative. This is the only option. Which isn't true, because pre-existing the idea of separation, there must have been something. And this is where science, they get to the point, they say, the Big Bang, and then, okay, well, where did it come from? Well, there's no answer in scientific materialism can't give you the answer, because that answer denies the ego. It denies their whole conception is true. So they don't even ask the question. Okay, well, what pre-existed then time? They don't know, and they don't even consider it. Time zero, they say we can't describe it. There are no models to describe time zero. Okay, well, maybe that's kind of interesting. Maybe you should go and explore that. But it takes you out of the domain of science into mysticism and philosophy, isn't it? Because it's like, well, you can't really explain it. There's no models, no equations. Your scientific training, in fact, is not going to help you there at all. You need to let go of all of that and just experience it. So then you're entering the domain of the mystics and the masters and the philosophers and so on, which makes the scientists uncomfortable. But there must have been, there's logically, there must have been something that pre-existed the Big Bang. Otherwise, where did it come from?
It
came out of nothing. Okay, well, what's nothing then? Maybe nothing is not, it's no thing. No, there's no form there, but maybe that nothing is actually reality.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So now you see, if you just follow the logic, whichever way you want to approach this, whether you approach it from this in Course in Miracles, and he's talking about the metaphysics of the mind and this, or you approach it from the science and you end up at the Big Bang, you end up with the same answer. It's something that pre-existed the whole thing.
Yeah.
And that something is what we are. That's base reality. That's who we really are. And so, then our only choice is, well, are you going to go there and accept it or not? You're going to continue to live in the denial of it, which birthed the entire universe.
But when you say pre-existed, as in pre-existed the Big Bang or pre-existed prior to the ego, it's all an illusion anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it still exists. It's not like it never didn't exist. It's foundational reality. So the ego is doing its thing, and there's this, underneath that, there's just this eternal presence that's always been there, that's existed forever, and without time. There's no beginning to it and there's no end to it. It simply is. There's no movement, there's no change, there's no fluctuation, and the idea of separation has no effect on it at all. So, in this world, a good analogy is the ocean. You go into the depths of the ocean, like a kilometer or two down. Like really, what happens on the surface? There could be a massive storm raging on the surface. It makes absolutely no difference. No. Kilometer down, it's all the same. It's just an unchanging state, unchanging darkness. So, in the same way, it doesn't matter that the storm has been raging in the mind for seeming billions of years. The pure formless awareness is still there, just waiting for us to go, okay, I'm willing to accept it now. I'm willing to accept this awareness back into my mind and allow my mind to be healed, rather than keep indulging the belief in separation, which I realize is actually getting me nowhere. I'm just spinning around in time and space, going absolutely nowhere. And that's a very frustrating position to be in, as we know.
Okay, that's helpful, John. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. So, keep looking at this, because the more you go into it, you think about it. Like at some point, something just drops, and you kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm actually kind of getting it. In fact, what other explanation could there be?
Yeah.
There isn't really another logical explanation for this world. No one's come up with one. This is the best one I've found, and I think it's the best one you'll ever find, because it's the truth. And it's not anything the ego wants to know, because it basically makes the ego into an entity. So that's maybe why you go, oh well, it doesn't really sit for me, and it's not satisfying, because the ego is not going to be satisfied with it, and it doesn't actually make any sense. If you really unpack it, you're like, well, what? Like that really? So that's what's behind this whole world? Like surely it must have been something bigger or more significant or meaningful.
Oh yeah, there's all that, yeah.
But of course, that's the ego trying to make itself into something that it's not. Big and significant and meaningful, which of course makes it real and then denies God. So don't fall into that trap. Jesus is just asking us to see, look, this is all just a sequence of very bad ideas strung together, then projected out of your mind to create this ridiculous, insane illusion. And it's actually quite simple to get out of it. Just recognize the thoughts that have done this to you, and don't believe them. Don't believe them anymore, even though they're playing out in this world a lot. You don't give them your belief. And then the belief in separation is undone. And that's all we're doing in simplicity. The miracle is simply don't believe it. Don't believe one word of it. Don't be tempted, because you give it any reality, then of course you make the whole thing real.
Okay, good.
All right. So maybe what I suggest was going to do meditation, but we've kind of gone into discussion. So shall we?
That's good.
A short one, and then do a med to finish.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so let's just.
Yes, well, this is an interesting looking chapter. The idols of sickness.
Yeah. So let's see what he has to say in the introduction.
Yes. Nothing beyond yourself can make you fearful of loving.
Or loving.
Oh yeah, okay. Nothing beyond yourself can make you fearful or loving, because nothing is beyond you. Okay, that's a complicated statement in the first place. Time and eternity are both in your mind. and will conflict until you perceive time solely as a means to regain eternity. You cannot do this as long as you believe that anything happening to you is caused by factors outside yourself. You must learn that time is solely at your disposal and that nothing in the world can take this responsibility from you. You can violate God's laws in your imagination, but you cannot escape from them. They were established for your protection and are as inviolate as your safety.
Okay. God is love, pure formless awareness. You can only violate the laws of love in your imagination. You cannot escape from it. Great. So you want to unpack that from the top? You said you had a problem with number 1.
No, actually, I'm getting it now on second reading. Nothing outside of ourselves can make us fearful or loving, because there's nothing outside of ourselves.
Nothing is beyond you, right? It's a projection of your mind.
Yeah.
You think it's something external, but it's actually not. It's a projection of your own belief.
Yeah. Time and eternity are both in your mind. Well, time is an illusion. We've made that one up. Eternity is beyond time. So I'm not sure how eternity is beyond. Time and eternity are both in your mind and will conflict until you perceive time solely as a means to regain eternity. Okay, so he's saying here that we'll have this difference between time and eternity until we realize that time is only here to help us as a measure to help us get back to an understanding of eternity. But we cannot do that as long as we believe that anything that happened to us is caused by factors outside ourselves. So we must take responsibility and see that everything that is happening is a result of our own thoughts, actions, beliefs. You must learn that time is solely at your disposal and that nothing in the world can take this responsibility from you. So time is our invention. It's solely at our disposal, and nothing in the world can take it. And you can kind of feel this with time, because when I get the feeling that time is running away, I've lost my center, and I'm no longer in charge. And as a result, one of the things is that time is running away. Whereas if I'm present, I can kind of let go of time, and the clock might say I'm supposed to be somewhere at 3 o'clock, but it doesn't matter, because I am where I need to be. And if that's somewhere else, it all works out. And as long as I stay in the present.
Yeah. The present moment is the approximation of eternity in this world.
Yes.
And now feels so good because it feels eternal.
Yeah.
It doesn't change. It roots us into this awareness of some eternal mind, unchanging, because it is the one thing that doesn't change in this world. It's always now. That present moment never actually changes. The content of it changes. The experiences, it comes and goes in the present moment. That's changing all the time, moment by moment.
And but we can violate
the moment itself. The now, as Eckhart Tolle calls it, doesn't change.
No. And we can violate God's laws in our imagination. What he means by this is that we can follow the egoic thoughts and imagine that we are violating, going against God's laws, cannot actually escape them. They are always there. And they were indeed established for our protection and are not to be violated, not to be changed.
As inviolate as your safety. So even though we think we've denied them, and we're now playing around in this belief in separation, they remain. So oneness remains intact, right? So this remains irrespective, and so there's a total split in the mind. This is what he's trying to say. He's saying, look, don't try and reconcile these, because you never will. It's this or that, and they contradict each other.
Yeah.
The moment we had the tiny mad idea, the contradiction came in. That was where the split started.
Yeah.
And then we believed it and made the split real. So you'll never reconcile these. You simply have to choose
one
or the other, which makes complete sense. Okay,
Yeah.
well, of course I can't reconcile opposites. Why have I been trying for years and years and years to reconcile opposites when it's very obvious I can't reconcile it? So then, that simple truth means that I have to choose between them.
Yeah.
It's going to be one or the other.
I'm just going to the loo, but I'm listening.
Yeah, no problem. Can you listen from the loo? Not really.
It's got exceptional hearing.
Really? Okay. So we're kind of done. Maybe Sue, if you want to give us a little summary of number one.
So there's nothing outside of yourself. So nothing outside of yourself can make you fearful or loving. Time and eternity are both in your mind. And are going to conflict as long as you think time is something real.
Yeah. And you perceive time solely as a means to regain eternity. So what we do here is we make time real by saying, well, there's another purpose for time. You see. So in time, I can desire things in this world. I can have experiences, get stuff I want. I can avoid pain. Maybe a lot of my time is spent avoiding pain, seeking pleasure. And this is the ego's use of time. And he's saying that the one use of time is that it's there to help you regain eternity. So in other words, your only job here is to let go of the ego and time and restore your mind to eternity. Your only job is to forgive. It's not to misuse time and try and achieve things in time that seemingly have a value or real when they don't. See, because it's all a delusion. You're just dreaming. And anything you dream up here is unreal. None of this exists in eternity. Okay, John, do you want to continue summarizing from number 3? Sentence 3.
Well, we can't go beyond time into eternity unless we give up this thought that something else caused our problems.
Yeah, because that's the projection of separation outwards, right? Which made the split seemingly real. Well, the moment we went out of our mind and we miscreated an external world, now we set up a seeming cause that's outside of the mind. But in fact, the mind caused it all, because the mind's what projected it out. So we have to remember that. It's not caused by factors outside yourself. Okay, and then continue.
That time is so he's saying we've got to realize that time is at our disposal, and we've just got to really take that on board. And
yeah, so this is our responsibility. You know, we are responsible in time. We can respond from the ego or from the Holy Spirit, depending on how we interpret time. So we must choose to use time wisely, choose to use time solely, as he says in the first bit, solely as a means to regain eternity. That's our only purpose here and our only function, which is what he's been telling us in the text. You know, forgiveness is your only function over and over and over again, right? So letting go of the dream is your only function here. Time is solely a means to regain eternity, put in other words. And that it's your responsibility. Nothing in the world can take this responsibility from you. It's every person's responsibility to use time correctly or not, depending on which teacher they listen to.
Yeah. And then he goes on to say, well, we can either go the way of the ego and effectively violate God's laws, but we're only going to be doing that in the dream, and we cannot actually escape God's laws because they were established. They are kind of like the norm. They are part of the fabric of everything, and they are there for our protection and our safety.
So we can always return our minds to them.
Yeah.
Which is our eternal safety. So it's just, it doesn't matter what the ego's done. It's just a split. It's like an alternative mind, alternative reality. And he's saying, well, it's very simple. Just deny it all. You deny it all, you drop it all, then you're back in love, God, pure formless awareness, because that's all that remains.
Yeah.
And that's, the very simple teaching he's trying to teach us. Just to drop it all, drop our beliefs in it, our emotions about it. Of course, that is much easier said than done. If you caught up in the scrum of it, it all seems to be very real. But the concept's very simple, which is why the course works. It's actually a very, very simple teaching. Ultimately, it's not complex.
When you say the course is very simple, John, I get what do you mean it's very simple?
Well, the metaphysics of it, the underlying principle is very, very simple. It's not complicated. He's saying, look, there's truth and there's illusion. You have God, love, oneness, which is your true awareness. You are one with that.
Yeah, yeah.
There really is nothing else. You've invented this crazy, from this tiny mad idea, invented a whole illusion in your mind, and you've been caught up in this dream for a very long time.
Yeah.
But none of it's true. None of it's real. So let it all go. And when you do that, you'll return your mind to God, love, pure formless awareness, and you'll be exactly as you always have been.
Okay.
Be, perfectly happy and safe and loved and loving, and none of this will matter.
Yeah.
Well, I explained it in a minute. That's a pretty simple idea, conception. It's not complicated.
Yeah.
That's the perennial philosophy on which all the spiritual teachings are based. But that's some simple in theory. The practice of it can be tricky.
Yeah.
Because you're caught up in the scrum and you believe in it. and you're having these experiences, and they seem to be very real. And so all of that denies that oneness is true, and so now it takes a lot of effort to let go of our belief in all of this stuff, and consciously deny it as it arises. Go, no, this isn't true. I'm not gonna think these thoughts. I'm not gonna feel these emotions. I'm not gonna give it any reality in my mind, even though it's happening, seemingly in my reality. So that's complete inversion of the ego's belief system, and a complete inversion of everything you've been taught within the ego's framework, and it can feel quite difficult. It's like, whoa. I mean, have you ever felt like my head's going to explode with this course? Because it's like a complete opposite to everything you've believed.
Yeah.
Or believe that. So it's simple. Yeah, just believe completely the opposite of what you've learned. Let go of all of it. But to actually do that while you're still kind of operating in the world, well, this is the art of it. Hence, the art of letting go. It's an art, and it's continuous practice, and it's refining it, and eventually getting to the state where you're unmoved by separation, no matter what form it takes. Although you're still knocking around in a body, and so you still have the physical senses and various experiences, and you can still observe the stuff going on in the world, you're really unmoved by it. It just doesn't really affect you at all. That's where we're trying to get with this, that you're just so rooted, your mind is rooted in this pure formless awareness that nothing the ego does or says really just matters. You just regard it as what it is, just false and illusory, and really not worth any thought or emotion at all. So does that kind of explain it? Of course, it's simple.
Yeah, that's good. That's excellent. Yeah.
And he does say that. That's a quote, direct quote. He says, this course is very simple.
Yeah.
At some point. So, because the truth is simple. Otherwise, it wouldn't be the truth. If it was complicated, then intuitively, I think we all know, like, surely truth would be simple. It's not going to be some complicated, convoluted thing that's impossible to understand. Then it wouldn't be the truth. It would be a lie. Complication and convolution and all of that is part of the ego's thought system, but actually in the end we can't really understand it. Try as we might, we're never going to understand it because it doesn't make sense. Only oneness makes sense ultimately. Okay, so happy with number one?
Yep.
On to number two.
God, or pure formless awareness, created nothing beside you, and nothing beside you exists, for you are part of it.
So use instead of created, because he uses created and creation quite a bit in this paragraph.
Okay.
So use extended. See how that works for you.
Pure formless awareness extended nothing beside you, and nothing beside you exists, for you are part of it. What except pure formless awareness can exist? Nothing beyond it can happen, because nothing except that is real. Your extensions add to it as you do, but nothing is added that is different, because everything has always been. What can upset you except the ephemeral? And how can the ephemeral be real if you are the only extension of pure formless awareness, which extended you eternal?
Nice, good translation there.
Your holy mind establishes everything that happens to you. Every response you make to everything you perceive is up to you, because your mind determines your perception of it.
Okay. Any thoughts on that?
Well, really, it's saying that there is only pure formless awareness and nothing else.
How can the ephemeral, how can what's temporary, ephemeral means temporary, and they call it anicca in the Buddhism. It's temporary, changeable, ephemeral. How can this be real? If you are love's only creation and it extended you, love's only extension, it extended you eternal. So it doesn't make any sense. I mean, if you accept this, then the ephemeral and just doesn't mean anything. It's clearly not of any substance.
Yeah, and our bodies are ephemeral, aren't they? Because they're just here for a moment and then gone.
Very obviously, yeah. You know, your body is changing all the time, moment by moment. Things are changing. So it's looking at the changeable nature of this reality and saying, but none of it's true. Whatever changes arises and passes away. So how can it be true if it's can fade out and it cannot be there? That's not true existence. And so the body clearly is not of God. So obviously, because it's not eternal. And you can't really fudge this. Again, he's saying, you know, it's one or the other. It's either eternal or it's ephemeral. You must decide which you're going to believe in.
And we can only be upset by the ephemeral.
Yeah. Because the eternal, there's nothing upsetting there. It's just pure formless awareness. Nothing ever changes. How can you be upset by what doesn't change? It's just pure formless awareness. It's perfectly peaceful, perfectly loving. It never changes. Well, that clearly can't upset you. It's impossible to be upset by that. So only the changeable can upset you. Well, the ephemeral, the changeable is not real. So if it's not real, then how can it really upset you? Only if you believe in it can it upset you. Because you give it the power to do so. So this is how the belief in separation plays out. We give the projections of it some kind of reality. We make them real in our minds by believing in them and then thinking about them and feeling emotions about them. That's how the ego makes itself real. So that's why this idea of mind training and correcting your perception is so critical. Because the perception is where the rubber meets the road of this. Is it real or not in your perception? And then he says your holy mind establishes everything that happens to you. Every response you make to everything you perceive is up to you. So you have this power to interpret everything that seemingly happens in this dream world and determine your perception of it. That is our only real power in this world, isn't it? We have the power to choose how we want to perceive it.
Yeah.
If we give that away and we're saying that illusion is real, then we give away that power. We're not choosing. We're just allowing whatever external to trigger us. So, if it's nice, we might feel temporarily kind of happy or satisfied, but the same mindset is going to disappoint us over and over because a lot of the time it's not going to be nice. I mean, the world's disappointing me all the time. And then we suffer. Whereas this is taking the power of our minds back and the power to choose our perceptions back and giving it over to the Holy Spirit or the awareness of oneness. So the Holy Spirit, the awareness of oneness, simply says you have the power to perceive all of this madness differently. And I will show you how. I'll show you how to interpret it differently. See it in an opposite way. And that's your only way. That's the only way out. You've got to change your perception. So how to change in perception, this entire thought system just continues unchallenged. And you remain in the ego. Okay, we'll give a little summary of that.
Yeah. Okay, so we are extensions of pure formless awareness, and nothing else exists. And so therefore we are eternal because we are extensions of pure love, pure formless awareness. So only the temporary can upset us. Temporary, illusory things can upset us. And our holy mind determines how we perceive anything that happens to us. It's up to us how we.
Yeah. So we have the choice always. We've chosen to believe in separation, but we can choose again. And we can choose to perceive everything that the ego's made differently. And that's really all we're doing. As I said, it's a very simple course. It's just asking you to change your perception of everyone and everything. Very simple. Change your perception of it all, because it's not true. Your perception is false. But it's the magnitude of that, right? Because it's a total, he's asking us for a total commitment. It's not just, oh, we'll focus on this little area. He's saying the whole of it, all of it, you need to perceive it differently. From the awareness of oneness, which is the Holy Spirit, it reminds you of the truth, that only oneness and the pure formless awareness that is inherent in oneness are true. So now perceive from that point of view, reinterpret it all from that point of view, and systematically you must start taking your mind back into this state of mind, into this belief, and ultimately beyond belief to knowledge, where you just know that it's true and there's nothing else. And that's all we're doing here. It's a very simple course. He's just training us to do that. Systematically and progressively correct all of our misperceptions and reference them, instead of to the belief in separation as the truth, reference them to the belief in oneness, which is the Holy Spirit, and use that as our tool for perception, or the basis of our perception. Make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. So it's a very simple course. It's really not complicated.
Yep.
It's the magnitude of it. It's so opposite to the way we think that it's difficult to reverse your thinking so completely. 180-degree turnaround, and that's why people think of it as difficult. But the actual message is not a complicated message at all.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Number 3.
God does not change his mind about you, for he is not uncertain of himself. And what he knows can be known, because he does not know it only for himself. He created you for himself, but he gave you the power to create for yourself so you wouldn't be like him. This is why your mind is holy. Can anything exceed the love of God? Can anything then exceed your will? Nothing can reach you from beyond it, because being in God, you encompass everything. Believe this and you will realize how much is up to you. When anything threatens your peace of mind, ask yourself, has God, pure formless awareness, changed its mind about me? Then accept its decision, for it is indeed changeless, and refuse to change your mind about yourself. God, pure formless awareness, will never decide against you, or it will be deciding against himself itself. Nice reassuring paragraph here, very firm, strong, clear. God does not change his mind about you. He is committed to you. He created, extended you for himself, and he gave his power to you to be like him, which is what makes us holy.
In other words, we are extensions of that same awareness. And that awareness is our awareness. There's no separation. There's no difference. That's all. Very simple teaching. Just accept that awareness and the truth. Threatens your peace of mind. Ask yourself, has God changed his mind about me? So has pure formless awareness changed its awareness of me? No. That awareness remains forever. It's eternal. And accept his decision. Accept its decision just to accept this, that this is reality, this is who you are. Is indeed changeless, and refuse to change your mind about yourself. Right? So that was the problem. We changed our minds about ourselves. We invented a false self. We end up in a very bad dream, and now we must refuse to do that. Refuse to change our mind about ourselves. I am that I am, and there is no other. Okay, and then finishes off with God or love will never decide against you, or he or it would be deciding against himself, itself. Which no, cannot really happen. Yeah, any questions on that?
I'm not sure why this introduction is the introduction to the idols of sickness. Because I mean, this is kind of like basic metaphysics going on here, and
it's all connected. Idols of sickness is the belief in separation.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So, in the end, because it's such a simple teaching, healing lies in simply accepting the truth of the teaching. So, he just goes over and over and over again, the same thing. He's repeating a very, very simple truth over and over and over again in many different ways. And reveal just, I think what makes it valuable is he's revealing the ego in all of its guises. So you're not fooled by it anymore. That's really what makes this text valuable. Because if you knew how the ego worked, then you wouldn't be fooled by it. But we are repeatedly fooled by it because we don't understand how it's working. And so this mind training is necessary. Okay, do you want to give a little summary of number 3, paragraph 3, and then we'll move into a meditation.
God is always with us. He extended himself to create us. We are his extensions. We cannot come to any harm, and he is sure of us.
I like this. It's another little pattern interrupt. When anything threatens your mind, your peace of mind, ask yourself, has God or love changed his or its mind about me? So has love changed its mind about me?
Yeah.
And then accept, the truth of the answer. No, it hasn't changed its mind about me at all. So it doesn't matter what's happening here. I have this unshakable rock, unshakable presence in me. So my house is built, and quote that parable, house is built on the foundation of rock, not on the shifting sands of time. Okay, happy with number 3?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, I'm going to give a summary of these 3 paragraphs just in a minute. And what's the key point he's making?
Nothing is outside ourselves because we are extensions of pure formless awareness, and that is all there is.
And so our only responsibility now is to perceive it correctly.
Yeah.
We must choose our perception correctly, because our mind determines our perception of it. When anything seems to threaten our peace of mind, we simply have to ask, has God or love or pure formless awareness changed his or its mind about me? And the answer is no. I remain. I am that I am. I am that presence. I remain that. If it's eternal, then I remain it now. I must be in that presence now. And of course, if you really believe this, then your mind is corrected. And you're no longer going to be getting upset, be fearing, worrying, because you're rooted in this eternal now presence. This is the closest approximation of eternity that we have in this world. And that feels very happy, very comforting. You can feel love. Okay, so happy with this
Yeah.
short section. So do you need a comfort break, or can we go straight into a med? John's had one, I think so.
Well, I'm going to have another one.
Okay. Good to okay, well let's start in a couple of minutes. I'm just going to go and do the same thing, and get a top up of tea, and then we'll do 20-minute meditation. Okay.
I've gone for a break. It's making more sense for you then, sir.
All right. Is John with us yet?
Just got the news. Oh, here she is. Amy. Rude. Is my newly arrived granddaughter, Jono.
Okay. Let's just start the recording again.
Eva Elizabeth Mottram. £7, 14 ounces. Born at 16.
Okay. So, you ready?
Yeah.
Elizabeth's in the family. Megan Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Elizabeth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you standing up, John? Okay, muted. All right, so just sitting comfortably or standing, feet shoulder width apart, back straight. Close your eyes and start off by taking a nice deep breath in through the nose, breathing into the lower stomach, blowing the stomach up like a balloon, drawing the energy up into your heart center. Put one hand on your heart space, connecting with your heart, and then draw it all the way up into the crown of your head, just pausing at the top of the inhale. So it's a maximal inhale breath. You pause at the top of the inhale. And just bring to mind any grievances that you are holding towards anyone or anything. So whatever that grievance feels like, notice it. Notice how disturbing it is to your peace of mind. Notice the thoughts, notice the emotions, notice the body sensations. Maybe a disturbance in your stomach, knot in your stomach. Heat in your body, clenched jaw, clenched fists. To extreme, things like dry mouths, sweaty palms, nausea and panic attacks come just from our thoughts and emotions. So notice even the subtle sensations. Just shows you that there's this thought that underlies it that needs to be healed. So breathe in the light of truth. You can imagine a golden or white light flowing in to your mind, into every pore, every cell, every muscle of your body. You recognize that you're not a body. To be without a body is to be in our natural state. Recognize this light or this true awareness in us is to recognize ourselves as we are. To see our true self, capital self, as separate from the body is to end the attack on God's or love's plan for awakening and to accept it instead. So just breathe this acceptance in to every part of your mind, every pore, every cell, every muscle in your body. Reflect it. The body can be used by the Holy Spirit, the mind that remembers oneness, to help us to remember the truth rather than perpetuate the illusions about ourselves. Our goal is to become aware that God's plan or love's plan for salvation has already been accomplished in us. And so we must replace the attack on ourselves, which can masquerade as attack on others, with acceptance. As long as we attack it, we cannot understand what love's plan for us is. There's one attack thought going on in your mind. So you're therefore attacking what you do not recognize. So now we're going to try to lay all judgment aside. Just let it all go. It's the breeze of your breath, dropping all of thoughts and emotions you became aware of, and I asked you to bring to mind a grievance. This grievance is symbolic of all grievances. The way you handle this one is the way you can handle them all. It's massively empowering. So blow it all away with the breeze of your breath. The nothingness that really is. Just rest here for a few moments. Ask yourself the question: what is salvation? And what is awakening? My Father, my source. Asking of the very deepest part of your mind, the source of your mind, of your being. So I do not know. Tell me that I may understand. So we're asking for this guidance. The deepest part of ourselves, tapping into it. What is awakening? Tell me, because I do not know. Then wait in quiet for its answer. Just breathing normally in and out through your nose. Observe the breath. Subtle flow of breath into the nostrils and then out of the nostrils. So that should keep your mind in the eternal present, now moment, which is where you'll hear the answer. The mind is quiet, calm. We have attacked love's plan for awakening without waiting to hear what it is. We have shouted our grievances so loudly that we have not listened to its voice. We've used our grievances to close our eyes and stop our ears. So now you would see and hear and learn. Ask yourself one more time, what is salvation? Father, what is salvation? My source. Ask and you will be answered. Seek and you will find. We're no longer asking the ego or the belief in separation what salvation or awakening is and where to find it. We're asking it of truth. Be certain then that the answer will be true because of whom you ask. And so just sink inwards, breathing, getting quiet and calmer, more and more relaxed with each breath, going within to the quietness of your mind, the still, calm, empty, spacious awareness that exists within us all. And you ask there, you're in that awareness, from that awareness. Ask the question, what is salvation? Father or Source, I do not know. Tell me that I may understand. Then be quiet, be still, and just let this voice speak to you. Nowhere else to go, nothing else to do, nothing else to think about. Just breathe, relax. And be still. And listen to the voice of love. It will answer every question you've ever had. It will tell you what salvation is, what your awakening is. So just listen in deep silence for the next couple of minutes. If you feel any doubts creeping in, confidence waning, your hope of success flicker, and go out, repeat your question and your request, remembering that you are asking of the infinite creator, the extender of infinity itself, to extend it you like itself. What is salvation? Father, what is awakening? My source. I do not know. Tell me so that I may understand. and let it speak to you in the silence. Not necessarily the words, just with a feeling, all is well. Feeling of certainty, of calm, of peace. Just allow whatever experience awaits you to arise for you in the next couple of minutes of deep contemplative silence. And so gently coming back to this deep state, connection with your source, silence, stillness. Bring some awareness back now into your body and the breath and the senses and the world. but you remain connected to this true awareness, deeper awareness, pure formless awareness. Remains with you, underlying all of your sense perceptions. So on the count of 3, you're going to open your eyes. 1, just breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises. And the subtle flow of air in through the nostrils, pausing at the top of the inhale. And scan your mind, notice any thoughts, any emotions, any sensations, particularly any grievances. You always feel limiting, contracted, constricting, negative by nature. So notice those, breathe into them. So just breathing in the oneness, the love that you're hopefully connected with in today's reading, today's session. And you just feel this love, this light, if you want to call it light, just dissipating. So you exhale and just blow it all away. With the breeze of your breath, letting it all go. And the nothingness that it really is. From the lower stomach into the spine. Expel the last remaining air out. And just rest here. A few moments. And there's peace and stillness between breaths. No gap. And the mind is a portal to eternity. And now moment is the portal to eternity. Think of that. So very profoundly, just coming into awareness of the present moment. When you're unwinding the ego's mind, its thought system, the entire world. So on the count of 2, noticing the weight of your body, pressing down into the chair, your feet touching the ground. Noticing what you're feeling and touching with your hands. You breathe in again, notice maybe there's a subtle smell in your nose, a taste in your mouth. Notice what you're hearing, surrounding environment. Just noticing all these things from this very still, calm and surrendered state. State of mind beyond delusions. Able to perceive the illusions but not believe in them. Just remain rooted in this true awareness, the awareness of your own pure formless awareness. Underlies all your perceptions. You can stay there for the rest of the evening and on into tomorrow until our next session. So it is said and so it is done. And on the count of 3, open your eyes. Just look around for a minute, observing very casually the various objects in the room around you. Let your eyes rest randomly for a few seconds on anything, and then you have to move on and skip to something else. Then again, something else. Without any attachment, without any judgment, without interpretation. These things really have no meaning. And you acknowledge that just the same awareness underlies all of these perceptions. It's what you're training your mind to experience, pure formless awareness that underlies all sense perceptions. And actually then you start realizing here's your fundamental nature, is the truth, and changeable perceptions are not true. And that roots you in your true awareness, you merge with that awareness, you become one with it. That is the merging of the Son and the Father, extension at its source, which we are training our minds to do. So I hope you experience some of that today, a little glimpse of it, some deep peace in the meditation. And that's what I wish for you tonight and tomorrow, until we meet again at 1:30 p.m. is our next session tomorrow. Yeah, and we've got 2 sessions tomorrow, so we'll do morning and evening again. So thanks for joining, Sue and John.
Thank you, John.
My pleasure, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you, John.
We got another power cut at 3 o'clock your time, so we can start kind of on time, then we'll hopefully finish before the power cut, because it wreaks havoc with my connection. I'm trying to switch it over. Sorry, I tried to get back on. It took me about 10 minutes. By that time, you're gone. So we can we're doing 2 sessions tomorrow, so we can split the first one and get it done in an hour and a half. Then we can before the power cut, then we won't have any interruptions, and we'll continue in the evening when there's no power cut scheduled. So thankful for small mercies. Okay, so
Yes.
have a nice evening, and see you tomorrow at 1:30.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, namaste.
You.
No.
Night.